Okay, I think we're recording and verification from someone. I'm looking for the icon in this UI.
Yep, it's working.
Oh, thank you, Kevin. And let me also, since you're on right now, make you a co-host. Okay, so welcome everyone to the April 7th MicroProfile Live Hangout Working Group Edition. And so it sounds like a lot of you, or looks like a lot of you have actually seen the working group discussion. May not have had a chance to read the entire thing, but it has been posted. People are already commenting on it, which is wonderful. The more, the merrier. My hope is to have this wrapped up so that we can continue to release MicroProfile 4 in June. I don't know if that's going to be possible, mainly because I don't fully understand what is going to be required by the Eclipse Foundation for allowing us to move forward. So we have the working group, right? There's a spec doc, there's a participation agreement, what's going to be required before we are actually able to kind of move forward. So that's a discussion that we should have with the Eclipse Foundation, just so we know what we'll need and we get it all in order before the release. So, okay, and yes, the meeting notes should be, and I forgot to mention this, sorry, the meeting notes should be in the chat. If not, please place them there. And it is everyone's shared responsibility to take notes. If you're on the call, please add your name to the meeting notes contributors list. Okay, so I think with that, I am going to just quickly bring up, there's the working group thread where if you want to have a discussion outside of the document, just because it's easier maybe to type or edit or something like that, or it gets long, feel free to post it in this working group thread, the working group standalone proposal. It is pinned to the top. And this is the actual working group document, which I'm going to zoom in on here a little bit. I think I'll do 125%. So I also get the table of contents in here. I don't know if any of the other, I guess, kind of co-authors of this initial version have any comments, but the one last thing I'll say is this is a draft, right? We just worked on it in fairly sequential order, made some changes to, well, we took what we had in our previous working group, document, in GitHub, all those concepts, and try to apply it to a template of the working group document, right? So if you go to, oops, there's a Spark plug, and this was supposed to be ASCII doc, but right, you'll see that there's a well-defined format, and we just tried to follow that format, and we are open to comments. So I don't know if anyone else has comments on this.
Yeah, so John, I'll just add a little bit to that. Of course, what he just pointed out, the ASCII doc and Sparkplug working group proposals, we reference those quite a bit because that's what Mike and the Eclipse Foundation asked us, to take a look at that as kind of a template. And then we also referred back to the Jakarta EE working group charter as well, and took ideas from that, along with what, our principles of MicroProfile and how it fits in. So it's a meld of a lot of different ideas, and we may have gotten something wrong. We probably did. So please feel free to point out things that need to be changed, addressed, added, whatever.
David or Scott, any other comments?
Other than we threw something together fairly quickly, so there wasn't a very long delay. So this is a starting point. So we probably should go through it. And is this the on week or the off week?
This is the off week. We have a full hour.
Okay. So we should probably go through it and discuss the various points. And we kind of have a thin attendance. So 13 is all right, but we've had much bigger numbers before, so I'm a little concerned about that.
This is the Easter holiday week, It's maybe someone going on holiday.
Okay. So I
Not like
guess
people are traveling anywhere, right?
yeah.
Exactly.
Fortunately.
Exactly. I got a plane to my bathroom.
Yeah, spend more time with the kids, It's now it's a kids holiday, so need more supervise.
So I guess we could just go, flow through this document and see how far we get. That's one way of trying to tackle this.
John, can I suggest that you assume that no one has read it and we go into, I believe that the previous PR was used for this, using also some examples from charters. So if you explain what the four of you did to everyone here as this call is recorded, that would be better than assuming that we all know what the hell went down here.
Well,
So
I think that's what his suggestion, just go top to bottom and we'll just walk through it.
Yeah, so if you look at this overall outline on the left-hand side, right, this is the table of contents. That is pretty much the structure that you'll find in all the working group docs. Maybe, well, there may not be any change at all, except maybe the membership side. But it starts out with the vision and scope, right? What is this working group all about? There's typically, a section around, principles that kind of align with that. And so we tried to define what we thought were some of the things that we've been operating against already, not trying to invent anything new. Limited processes, right? MicroProfile, obviously we have to abide by the Eclipse development process and the forthcoming MicroProfile specification process, but anything else, we just kind of create processes as we find gaps, right? We don't pre-optimize processes. Well, we should prepare for XYZ condition, right? No, that's not the way we've been doing things. So we just put that in as to kind of continue this. The second one is implementation first, and I think Lead Java, which I think, is that Steve?
Yep.
I think that's Steve, right? And he's got some really good comments here, but implementation first, right? The idea is MicroProfile specs are adopted only after an implementation has been created, and both the specification and implementation has had sufficient time for community review, right? So any additional comments? Let's see, we have Ken on here too. Is Ken on the call? Ken commented. Or Mark, sorry. Okay, yeah, they're not on the call right now. So
I have a question here. So what do you mean adopted? Okay, if we release the spec and we release the implementation, are you talking about like adopted by the platform release?
No, what this means is before we even start a specification on something new, right? If we're going to create an event-driven something or other specification, I'm just throwing something out there. What we'd say is, well, this is an area that hasn't really been investigated by anybody yet. Obviously, that's not true in this use case, but so let's go off and try it out first through one or more implementations and get the feedback. Let it get a little bit of maturity and use out there, and then define a spec based off of it. It is not spec first, right? Let's write a spec because we think some need needs to be solved. Let's prove the need and show an implementation, and then build a spec off of that idea.
So I kind of this is chicken egg stuff. I kind of like think in MicroProfile, because we move fast, why don't we come together, define what we want and implement it, and keep like the release it, and have some like a usage and etc. And then review whether should be adopted by the platform release. In this case, like we all come together in MicroProfile platform and evolve together. If we say implementation first, okay, yeah, I go to my own backyard and then do something, implement it, and then, I mean, other people won't be able to participate. If they have some ideas and etc., it's okay. I don't know whether they have any thought and etc. I think it's like we evolved that the current specifications. We didn't have much problems. But thinking like the other that I talked to Kevin, I think it's if we force the implementation first, etc. I mean, what we have done, like what's the new specs we have? I have not seen any. It is always slowing down the process.
But if we have something like an implementation first, do we not have a better idea what it could look like instead of just trying 3 or 4 times before we have it right, and then it's already as a spec and already an implementation and already in the wild? And that's maybe an advantage that we try it out first and have at least some minimal understanding of what it could be and what it should be.
So what am I suggesting? The trying first, we could try it first in MicroProfile, right? Could create like a sandbox ideas and etc. Try it first here. So in this case, we all come together to collaborate and then try together. Instead of it's like somebody implemented in their product and then eventually they might donate to MicroProfile. They all have in their own product and etc.
Hey, John, can you scroll up just a tiny bit? Yeah, so, you know, maybe one of the things that, so what Emily's pointing out, I think, is a core tenet that maybe we don't have represented, which is that we're very heavily in a go fast and break things and experiment kind of community. And that bullet's maybe not represented.
Exactly.
You know, maybe we need that bullet because it's sort of like the reason that we exist, as opposed to one of the reasons that we exist. Like, we're here to try stuff out and chase innovation. And so that spirit maybe needs to come out louder in the values.
Yeah. Yeah, I totally agree with you, David. Like we try it first. And this second bullet point is okay, you prove it and then come here. That's more like some other standard body. So we are here to evolve fast.
Yeah, and I guess I did not, and I even helped draft this, but I did not read this bullet about an implementation first. I didn't read this as strictly as John had communicated. I really see it as, okay, yes, a specification cannot be adopted or completed after an implementation has been created and shown that, the specification is doable. And so I kind of see it as just like what we have been doing with MicroProfile, with all of our specifications. I mean, some of them were based off of existing implementations. Some of them, the implementations were being built at the same time, trying to figure out, what the answer is.
Yeah.
So,
I will agree with what you said, Kevin. Basically, I kind of think, okay, you evolve here and then until you prove you can implement it, and then you can release this. I think that's what we have been doing.
John, can you put the link to the doc in the chat? I'm gonna try some language out. Maybe we like it.
There you go.
So I don't know that we need necessarily, I don't know if this conflicts with implementation first or if it's, but maybe we can,
Well, okay, so the other thing that I would like to point out, I don't know
Yeah.
that we really want to go into the detail on every line here? Aren't we just trying to get a feel for the content and then we can carry on the conversation later? Because if we go into this much detail on every bullet, we're not going to get through this.
Right. Yeah. I mean, so anyway.
I think this thing is quite important. The second one, the implementation first. I would reward it to be can only be released after implementation has been created.
I'm trying to do that not in bold, but there we go. So do we, I mean, anyway, we should reconcile these two in some way. But do people agree that it is that's the reason that we exist, is to, innovate and, basically experiment and innovate. This is basically kind of an incubator of ideas and prove them to be valuable or not.
Yep.
Yeah.
Definitely.
That's why we got the specifications out quickly.
And I guess my previous comment, David, I wasn't trying to cut you off because I guess maybe I'm misinterpreting what we were trying to do with this particular meeting. Are we trying to give an overview of the whole document, or are we really going to try to review and edit this as we go?
I think we should do an overview of the whole doc. Well, maybe both. I mean,
yeah, I know.
we probably should make sure that we're okay with the basic concepts, and people can continue review offline. So maybe we just continue with the details.
I went through. I don't know who else went through. So I think is because we are going through a few reviews and etc. I think it was well to spend the time on the details. But
Yeah,
if you want to give a quick overview, go for it. Maybe spend a few minutes to quickly go through them and then work on the details.
The expectations of how to work for the next 3 months. And we haven't done 2 months and a half. And we haven't done so. When the call started, I asked, can we just present each section of the proposal? And then that this call should be used after that setup of expectations to tackle each section together. If we can totally welcome outside and offline asynchronous work, but this call should set up expectations. This is the document, this is what it matters, and summarize for everyone, not only those ones that always attend these calls. If we go immediately into details on each section without owning the disappointments and all these things.
You're cutting up so much that we're not getting half of what you say.
I'm sorry, I'm using my cell phone.
At the speed that you talk, it's not very useful.
I am saying, let's present the document. As I say already,
I think people can read, hold on. I think I'm just going to, based on what Kevin said, I think people can read this document offline. And so I think going into some detail is probably fine, because this is the only time together that we're going to have to do that.
Correct.
I was on mute. That's funny. Yeah. Okay. So let's move forward. Maybe with review, and we'll have to figure out to what level of detail. Since these are bulleted items, I guess I'll cover these, and then I'll keep going down the doc. And if any of the other kind of initial editors want to also comment, that's cool too. Or if anyone wants to ask clarifications about a topic. Okay, so encourage brand proliferation. The idea here is we want the MicroProfile brand far and wide. And there's also, and that's something like a current brand, right? And then also, I think, introduce a separate compatibility logo that is, I would more or less say, is being required by the Eclipse Foundation, right? Something that shows there's implementations that actually comply, that have passed the TCKs. Okay, let's see. By the community, for the community. So the idea here, and someone mentioned in here about vendor neutrality, and to me, I think this is supposed to embody that in a way, where we just have, you know, we're a community that collaborates around open source specifications, right, and promote it in the marketplace. Let's see. Okay, this seems to be a redundant with what I just said up here. Let's see here. If there's anything else that's worth. Oh, we are going to have to define the MicroProfile specification process. So the MPSP. I don't know if that's required for us to move forward with releasing MicroProfile 4. So that's a question.
You just adopt the Eclipse if you want to. I'm not saying you should. You can just adopt the Eclipse.
It's always an option, but I think we're trying to collapse some things in there. So.
Oh, okay, so if you want to create, all I'm trying to say is if you want to create one, you can. You don't have.
Yes. Yes. So let's see. Leveraging, let's see, IP flows. That's, I think, pretty standard documentation bullet. And manage the overall technical strategies of the projects that are under the working group. That's pretty standard verbiage. Then it comes down to just talking about all the, you know, the governance and procedures, and you can see that these are all documentation that are related to governance and precedents. Sorry. The one thing that's missing here is we need a MicroProfile participation agreement. So I'm going to put that in here now.
That's.
Yes, Kevin?
Okay, I didn't know if I was on mute or not. Yeah, so John, we actually already discussed this, and it really doesn't have to be specified there.
Okay.
Because
well, we know we need one, but this is the ASCII doc and Sparkplug
did not have it.
Had left that bullet out because they're still in draft format. So for them to leave draft format, I'm assuming that's a detail that need that. I mean, you can put that in there and to do, but basically it's.
Yeah, the idea of this section, though, those bullets, was to reference documentation that already exists that we may be leaning on, but we don't have the MicroProfile participation agreement yet, so that's going to be defined as part of our working group.
Right. Okay, I see what you're saying. This basically says that the existing documentation above, the existing Eclipse legalese defined above takes precedence over anything that we may inadvertently specify that's in conflict with these. Membership. So we talked a little bit about membership, and with the Eclipse Foundation, there's multiple levels of membership within the Eclipse Foundation, right? There's strategic, sponsor, participant, committer, and we wanted to kind of collapse it down to corporate, committer, and guest. Sorry, there's also a guest one. And these are described, you know, below. And then there's also related to membership and fees, a Schedule A that's at the bottom, where we stuck in some fees, which is not an annual fee actually. It's a one-time upfront fee, but this is going to have to be discussed with the Eclipse Foundation to figure out what the cost and what the fee needs to be. So it's kind of a placeholder. And I don't know, does someone else want to kind of take over? Kevin or David or Scott?
Well, I don't know that we can take over, but I would just simply say that I discussed expressed some sentiment that maybe that's not enough to cover the legal that would require to put up the working group, but I'm just putting it out there. But in terms of other costs, you know, we've generally just donated anything that the project needed in terms of other things. So we've donated some shirts. You've donated shirts. We've basically just given the resources that the project needed on demand. I like that fashion. As well, we've done some things collaboratively in the community. So like the ebook that Lars put together was a real big community effort. And all the efforts for that were donated. So I think that does a great amount of, it helps establish kind of a community spirit, because people feel like they're contributing to all these small things, even if they're not contributing directly to specifications. So
let me add something to David's comment. Not only the white paper written with collaboration with Lars, but also we have 2 ebooks by one consultant that is totally independent, not yet on a committer. And we have by another contributor that is from IBM. The 2 ebooks are through open source. They have been reviewed. We have used PRs. It's just amazing. We want this project to continue to enhance and do things in the open. And that means that all activities as they are accomplished are done as they are now, right? Anything that will jeopardize and bring privacy, again, I will continue to repeat this, is a killer to enhancing those ones that have never written a blog or anything like this and would like to participate. So we definitely want to protect the doers.
Okay, so going down to the classes of membership, I think this was pretty much standard knowledge, verbiage. I don't know if it really changed much in there. It's just saying, for corporate members, they view, standards and technologies that are strategic to their organization, right? And want to be involved in, sustaining and shaping the activities of MicroProfile, right? This piece here is, let's see. Oh yeah. This place here is new verbiage. Corporate members. So we kind of collapsed the existing membership levels, like I mentioned, into one level, which we just for now call corporate. Corporate members must be at least solution members of the Eclipse Foundation and have earned committer status on at least one MicroProfile specification project. So I know that Steve had some questions around this, some good questions. The idea is that we want participation matters. So you actually have to have at least one committer on the project. You have to earn committer status before you actually can become a corporate member. And second, and I guess I'll just phrase it this way, it's not really a pay to play kind of thing. In other words, you pay the fee and you have automatic influence. There's got to be some level of earning of influence, which is why we've added at least having one committer on the project before someone becomes a corporate member. And I know that Mark had added, there's some additional conversations we have to have around this, like, well, what happens if they lose committer? Could they still be a corporate member, right? Or does it go right away and stuff, right? But that's a conversation we can have. Then there's a committer member. Did we really change anything? I'm sorry, guys. Did we really change much here?
No.
No,
go ahead.
The only thing that we did was add that second paragraph because of the thing that we put in place with Jakarta EE.
Yes.
But other than that, yeah, the committer member, we didn't change anything in that opening paragraph.
I have a question about the document. So a few of us will volunteer to this, and the one thing missing from the email when you delivered John the document is that we didn't ask for anyone else volunteer to volunteer. On the last call last week, we said, hey, we would have said maybe 5 to 6 volunteers to edit. My suggestion is to follow up on that. I have at the beginning of the document said this was drafted this and delivered when, and then I said volunteers. And then I assume that to move forward, I am a volunteer of the documents. I will.
Right.
You're breaking up again.
I don't want to stop the flow here. I mean, if you're interested in being an editor, my recommendation is to, maybe post it in the chat.
Right.
So, but I want to continue with the flow.
Let me just comment on the corporate and committer thing. So, I was one of the people who suggested the committer status concept. And so basically, we're not attempting to limit companies by dollar. So there has to be some way to say I'm in community, otherwise we just have people signing up for no apparent reason just to get their logo on the website and don't actually help or do anything, right? So the idea there is that, we're not asking you to give dollars to MicroProfile, we're asking you to give resources, contributors, and that you've gotten at least one through to a commit vote. You can go ahead and be part of the corporate member level. If you don't want to contribute any resources, i.e. people, to the project, you can be a guest member.
Yes.
Right? So the only difference between guest member and committer member is I have actually done enough work to earn commit.
Mm-hmm.
Either way, you could get the logo on the website. So the guest membership level would be covering all the people who currently have logos on the MicroProfile IO website, but aren't actually involved in the specification projects. So we could invite them all as guest members.
So the only other utility of that compatibility branding path that Mike suggested would potentially be that there'd be another section. If you really don't want to contribute, you're just interested in providing an implementation, but you want to, you can use the MicroProfile branding however you want, including claims of compatibility. But if you want like another tier that could potentially have another location on the website, that would be the only other use for that logo.
Yeah, I mean, here's the difference with. Sorry, I'm gonna get one kind of point out, I guess, Emily, and that is we're trying to maintain a very low barrier to entry where everything is public. So, typically guest members would, for example, be invited to be, you're invited to be a guest member, and then you could be on the steering committee meetings. Well, our committee meetings are all public, right? Okay, so there's no value in guest membership. So what is the value? And Scott just gave an example of that, right? So go ahead, Emily.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So for these members, like corporate members and committee members, so I understand a corporate member, yeah, you pay some fee, you get a corporate member. Okay, I'm not at the moment not discussing like whether you want a committer and then become a corporate member. So my question is for the committer members. So I mean, these committee members is the Eclipse, like normally their work group, etc. Not many seats. So what is our committee members definition? How many seats in these committee members?
That's documented below. Yeah, we're gonna get to that.
Well, let's just talk about it now. I think it's germane. So let's scroll to that.
Right.
I missed that bit.
Yeah.
I'm looking for voting here. Composition.
Yeah. So what we have is written so far is for every 2 corporate members, there has to be a committer member to try and keep things like more community focused rather than vendor focused. So that ensures that there's at least 1/3 of the community being, committers. I personally find that ratio to still be a little bit too lacking, but I would support a higher ratio, but it's taste.
So let's take an example, like for example, IBM and Tommy Tribe. Yeah, this is the kind of, let's say they are corporate members. So that means like, okay, these are 2 corporate members, and then you can have a committer member. Where is this committer member from? Is this committer member from one of these 2 corporate members?
Any
or
of the committers. So here's the spirit here. There are no restrictions on who can be a committer member, specifically so that people like yourself and Ken Finnegan can still get a vote, right? So there wouldn't be anything that would restrict you personally from being able to be a committer member and have a vote as yourself, Emily. And that's the spirit. So some people may go, oh, well, if Emily is on there, then IBM has 2 votes. But in practice, we know that that's not true. People in the community who are committers wouldn't vote for you to be a committer member on the group and have an official vote on specifications if they thought that you were just a corporate shill, right? They know that you will always vote your heart, and so therefore they will gladly, support your vote, right? That's the spirit, right? That you're not going to be excluded from being a committer member on the working group in taking one of the available seats just because you work for IBM.
One point on this is interesting.
Right.
Nominations today, the committee nominations today go to the forum. That is a standard we decided in 2019. And so we're talking about current committers discipline to continue growing our community by actions that deserve merit and go into someone being considered a committer instead of a contributor. Both are valuable. And I haven't read the document yet, but I think we need, I don't like code of conduct, but I think we need to state what are the expectations in this composition, because otherwise,
I can answer some of that. So the majority of the time, everything's going to be a straight up community committer based vote.
Correct.
We would only have a quote unquote working group vote under extremely minimal situations. One of them being if we need to change the charter, that's a working group vote. If we need to approve a specification, there needs to, so the utility of there being a vote for IBM, for example, is that if IBM is on record as someone speaking on behalf of IBM, we vote +1 to the specification, then IBM can't come around later and say, you're infringing our patents, because IBM is on record as saying, we agree to this specification. So we actually, the whole specification process is backed up by the fact that there is a company on record saying we as the company agree. So we need to have a seat specifically for corporate members so that the company can get on record. And we're all protected with the patent flows. But, where that patent protection isn't necessary, we tend most things to be committer votes, right? And so outside changing the working group charter or doing the patent protection that's involved in specifications, everything else should be committer run. That's the intent.
Okay, so let's, we need to, thanks for explaining this, because then when we write it, when we clarify it, it's easier to consume. That is a great explanation with an example.
And we specifically specifically, even when there is a vote where we require companies to be on record, which requires a committee of some kind, even when there's a committee, we're intending all of the meetings to be run publicly, so it doesn't actually matter if you're on the committee or not. You still get to talk. You still get to be part of the discussion, right? So in that way, it becomes kind of like the Apache Software Foundation, where yeah, there's a PMC, and the PMC votes are the ones that actually back up Apache from a legal perspective, and there has to be a minimum of 3 PMC votes for a release to be done, but everybody gets to be part of the conversation, and everyone gets to vote, and everyone gets to talk. And that detail doesn't really feel like a big deal.
I think that is
Okay.
right. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and if you look, I haven't had a chance to review all these comments. It looks like there's some really good comments here. Just make sure when you review that you also look at the comments, everyone, and extend the conversation if you have something to add.
Before we move forward, I'm sorry, my computer dropped. It's the Wi-Fi outside. But I said, how do we editors go into this? Because we need to use the comments, and do we use suggested mode? And we should have one person being the one approving, because if everyone changes the stuff, this is going to be a mess. So what are the rules of engagement?
So I wanted to defer that to the end because we're making a lot of progress.
Okay.
But it's a good discussion to have. I'm just trying to kind of postpone it a little bit. When we have about 5 minutes left, maybe that's what we'll do. So I'm keeping my eye on the clock, and someone step in if I happen to let the time go by with 5 minutes left. Okay, let's see. If we go back up to the top here, I think we also talked about guest members. So I think we're up to date with the membership levels, kind of describing those. Then there's a membership section, and I'll talk about marketing in a second. This is a table that you'll see again in other proposals as well, where you have the member tier, I guess, for lack of a better word, along with how they're actually gained access to the working group, a voting seat, I guess, appointed. If a corporate member comes in, they get a voting seat, assuming they have a committer member as well, and guests are invited. Now we have, let's see, we have corporate and committer members, but this I think we forgot to really deal with when we were kind of modifying this doc. And one of the things we discussed was not having a formally defined marketing committee embodied in the working group proposal. Obviously, we're going to have a marketing committee because they're doing an awesome job already. So I think
Marketing
one of the things,
people, but not a committee, right?
Well, thank you. Very, very good point. So, if we were to continue with the spirit of kind of like we've been discussing, this would go away. What it does mean is that if there's any budgeting as it relates to marketing, the group's going to have to talk about who's going to pick up a fee for. It gets back to what David said, whether it's shirts or conference attendance or yada, yada, yada. So there's no formalized budget at the working group level is a lot of what this means, I think.
That all that stuff is donated.
That all that stuff is done without a formalized budget. I don't know if anyone else agrees or disagrees with that characterization.
That sounds like what we talked about anyway.
Yep. So I think what I'm going to do temporarily is cross this out. Strike through, and I'm going to add a comment that says plan is to remove marketing committee.
Yes, this sounds excellent. I have a question. Like, I'm just reading the comments, like, on the screen. Eclipse MicroProfile. That, I do not know who wrote that, but it's a forum, so we shouldn't use forums, and all comments need to be defined by, has the perfect name of the person. You know, when someone provides feedback, we need to know who is providing that feedback. Noise is noise, if not backed up by someone that is actually a contributor on the project itself. So again, I'm just in the process mode before I tackle going to the document.
Yeah, I don't know if that's the right wording, but I try to capture what the idea is there. Then there's standard legalese about what if people don't abide by the membership requirements. So that defaults back to the existing documents that were listed aforementioned. Then there's the actual governance, and these, if I recall correctly, are all kind of boilerplate. Yeah, I don't think we changed anything here. The only thing that is, okay, now we start getting into some things that are different. In order to embody or to implement these principles that we have here, sorry, I'm trying to give you some context. And I don't like the way this is broken up here, but on its own bullet here by itself without context is combining the steering and specification committees. So the idea is the way we operate today is that, okay, everything is transparent. We don't really have a separate spec committee and a steering committee. We just do everything on the live hangout, right? Or the discussion groups. So what this means is if somebody were to become a corporate member and they get a vote, they basically have membership equally in the steering committee and the specification committee. So the working groups within the Eclipse Foundation have to have a steering committee and a specification committee. The marketing committee is optional, right? But these two are required. So what we're trying to do is say, yes, we have both, but we're really collapsing them into one entity. And so with the same members. So if you're a committer member or you're a corporate member, you really have a vote on each. Okay, that's the philosophy. Boy, I don't know if we've changed a whole lot of these. I think we changed words from review instead to define with some of these.
Yeah, and a lot of that is because we combined the steering and the specification committee. So we kind of took, you know, kind of like the bullets that existed for each of the committees and then combined them. And when we did, we saw that there was overlap. So then we did the define verb instead of or in addition to the review and approve.
Yeah, a lot of that stuff could be simplified, but basically if you have a separate specification committee, they would define the specification process, and then the steering committee would review and approve that process. So it's 2 steps. So we have both bullets just sort of shrunk down a little bit.
Consolidated, aggregated, yeah.
Right. It could just be define.
Yep.
We could eliminate the review and approve because it's define is implicitly doing both of those things.
Yeah, and you could add a comment there. Maybe there's some legalese reason why they have to split it out. I don't know. But if you add a comment,
we had separate powers, right?
Yeah.
Right?
Okay.
There were separate committees with separate powers, but we're trying not to have hierarchy. You know what I mean? But to keep things community run.
Right. Okay. And I apologize. We have like 2 minutes left before we talk about editing. Meeting management. So we did define here, and this may or may not address what Paul Buck was asking earlier in the doc. It says who's a member of good standing and what's the definition. So we've defined that here. I can see there's already some comments, and I don't know if I've actually seen I haven't read Steve's. We define voting voting in terms of what voting is. Supermajority must be in good standing. This is pretty standard text, I think. I can't remember if we changed much here. Yeah, I think it's pretty standard. Terms and dates of elections. So again, I think Paul was asking about this above. This is how we kind of have this defined here. For corporate members, for elected representatives, that is defined here. Meeting management.
Sorry,
yes.
John.
Go. Yeah, go for it.
Sorry to interrupt. You went over to that voting thing, and one of the comments that we have now is that based on the discussion we had earlier, that it should be very clear about who is then a committer, who has then committer vote, who has company votes, and at what level it gets influenced, because that's apparently not all clear. But just because you now just browsed the voting, that's quite standard, but apparently that is not that super standard if the individual committer of a company has also committer votes and not only a company vote.
Can you add a comment on that? And then we can have the conversation.
Yes.
Yeah, either in the doc or in the Google group.
Yes, Steve or I will do it, yes.
Yeah, you broke up on that. I don't know if I caught that.
Steve or I will do it. Make
okay.
a comment to the doc.
Okay.
I did add a note on guest member so that it explicitly says guest members may also be corporate members that simply don't have a committer on the project but want to use any compatible logo or have visibility on the MicroProfile.io website. Basically meaning the only difference between guest member and corporate member is whether or not you.
Okay. The last section here really, well, there's the schedule, but meetings management. I read through this, and the meeting management, if you look at the way we conduct meetings today, it's live hangout. We meet every other week. I read through this pretty quickly, and it looks like just the way we do stuff today already fulfills these things. So I didn't necessarily see a reason, again, with a quick perusal to change it, but I'm open to, if we need to make modifications here, that's okay. But the way we meet already fulfills this requirement. So anyway, I just didn't want to hard code. We meet 2 weeks in a live hangout in Google Groups. That's too specific because it may change over time. So I just think the way we already meet is within the kind of default template verbiage. All right, the last thing here, is there anything else? Invitations, body may invite Eclipse Foundation member to any of its meetings. Yeah, so we can invite, people like Ivar and Tanya, but of course they can join anytime they'd like. Okay, what we also have here is, I don't want to get stuck on the exact fee, but it's basically an initial fee that you have to pay to deal with the cost, perhaps the legal costs of creative working group. We can discuss that, but not in the 3 minutes we have left. But we do not have defined an ongoing fee, right? So that's going to be an area of discussion, I suspect. So in the 3 minutes we have left, I would like to kind of talk about what Amelia brought up, and that is rights to edit the doc.
Yes. Before
So
my mic crashes again.
Yes, we did do this. We did discuss this in the live hangout and said, okay, let's just to keep it manageable. We don't want to have 25 people. Commenting is good. Suggestion mode, making edits, it just gets unreadable. So basically, when I created this, I left the 4 original folks as editors. If anyone wants to go down to a suggester, that's okay. Amelia,
I'm in suggestion mode.
Okay. Yeah.
All right, sorry, I am back with my cell phone this time. So I heard everything. What's going on, John? Like, so how do we proceed? Suggestion mode?
Well, suggestion mode. At the end of the day, someone's going to have to approve, and I will try and do that when it looks like it's clear that everybody agrees. I'll do an approve. If there remains any kind of discussion to be had, I will leave the comments and suggestions. And if it becomes too unwieldy, by having comments directly in the doc, then we can move it to the discussion thread.
Mm-hmm.
So
I would suggest that we continue to use these meetings to
Yes.
clear out anything that is contentious or requires discussion, or
yeah.
that, like, anything that's not obvious, we approve them here together on the call.
That's a good idea.
Do we think that that we just need the 2 hours of the working group for these discussions, or do we still need to use the 30 minutes from the community call for such a discussions? Do we adjust, or do we keep what we did in the last 3 months moving forward?
I think we can keep what we've been doing. Okay, so David's playing the guitar. We can play. So we could continue the way we've been working. I think it's been okay. We still have to conduct business with around MicroProfile. There's another discussion.
I'm sorry, I got another call. I got to drop.
Thanks, David. Around compatibility and stuff. So I think we still have to conduct business. So I prefer we leave the way we're doing it, but that's my perspective. Others feel free to provide theirs.
I am starting to be, let me be biased here. I'm starting to be concerned that MicroProfile 4.0 is going to suffer because it will have only 30 minutes to be discussed. We have brought Emerson to help because Edwin is out on the releases, but we have given very little time to work on that release as we usually do. My recommendation is to, moving forward, to use the 2 hours fully for working group and the community calls as they are, 1 hour rundown. And if we are done with all the talks, and we want to use any time left after such a discussions, depending on the agenda, then we can do working group discussion. My suggestion is to adjust what we did in the past and just move to this proposal for 2 hours that are the offsets of the community, and then use the community call for what they are, for releases and whatever else, and then just supplement it with this. But you see, I'm one voice. What else? Who else is here that maybe has a different idea?
Well, I do want to set up one reminder. I apologize. I do want to set up one reminder that having a working group proposal is in the critical path. So we can't release 4 until this is done. So go ahead.
Yes, we know.
Others? Okay.
Others. Speak up.
Amelia?
Kevin.
Okay, so I'm sorry. I didn't know if
I'm using my cell phone, so see, this is horrible.
So I'm confused by your one statement. What did you mean by allocating 2 hours to this?
No, I'm saying that these calls that are 1 hour are twice a month, and there are the off when the community call doesn't happen, these calls happen, right? And then I'm wondering if we just use those 2 hours, those 2 calls for this proposal, this charter proposal.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Good.
Thank you for enabling me to clarify. I just want to make sure that the MicroProfile 4.0 is not hurt, because we have 2 important tasks. We have MicroProfile release because of the other one.
Yep, you cut out again, but I knew what you were talking about. Okay, I'm good.
So just quickly clarify, next week is MicroProfile 4.0, whatever the time left, and then we can talk about a worker group, right?
I prefer to leave a half hour still for the working group, but yeah, that's her proposal. And mine is to maintain the half-hour working group.
Right, okay.
Because we also have to talk about other things going to pop up, like the spec process, right? Potentially.
Yep.
Right. Okay.
And I guess I would tend to think that way as well, John.
Yeah.
That I think we still have to allocate a certain amount of time every week to continue this process. Because the comments on the doc are not going to stop.
Okay, so
Yeah.
then the majority, who else? We have Kevin and Emily and John. The three of you agree. And if anyone else here, do we keep it as it is? Okay, let's keep it as it is because voice goes to those ones that speak up.
All right. Thanks, everyone. Sorry, we're a little bit over today. I started a little bit late. Again, my last call went a little bit late. So I appreciate it, everybody.
Yeah, John, thanks for walking it through. I knew, we tried to help a little bit, but just having you guide through the whole thing, I think that was very good. So thank you for doing that.
It was wonderful. Thank you so much.
I learned a lot through this whole process. So I'm willing to share, learning to share what I know. Thanks everyone for joining the working group discussion. See everyone in a week. Same bat time, same bat channel.
Yes. Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.